Well, hi, this is Handmade House TV, and I'm Noah Bradley, and thank you for joining me today. I've got something really good for you. Stay tuned. Well, I hope all is going well with you in your quest for a handmade house. Today I'd like to share with you the best video I think that I've ever produced. It is the 12 keys to a handmade house. I've never posted this video here on YouTube. It's always been on my website, at least for the last year or so, in an area called What is a Handmade House? It's a video that reveals a lot as far as it took me years to discover what it was that I really wanted to achieve in building my own home. And basically this served as a framework for me, not only in the design of my homes, but also as a constant reminder throughout the process what I was trying to achieve so that I didn't get distracted. So I hope you enjoy it. Well, okay, thank you all for being here today, and I promise you it's going to be well worth it. I've got a couple of cups of coffee in me, and I'm ready to go on this. I invite you to pull out your notebook and take notes as we go along. I'm gonna go through these as quickly as I can so that they don't drag on and take up too much of your time. But I think that if you pay attention, you'll really get a lot out of this. By the way, you can get the show notes for this if you care. You can either sign up to my email list, and chances are you would have already received a copy of it by now, or if you look up above this video on this page, you'll see that there's a red box link that says on the bottom of it, if you want the show notes, click here. You can click there. You'll have to give your email address, which puts you on my email list. If you don't want to be on the list, you can easily unsubscribe at the bottom of any of the emails, and you're done. Okay, with all that said, why does anyone want to know what the 12 key factors, the key secrets, the key characteristics of a handmade house is? How is it going to help them? What's the significance of it? And I can say that it's huge. It's absolutely huge. And I can tell you that by telling you, first of all, a story. And if you've been following me on Facebook or YouTube, or you come to my website, Handmade Houses, chances are you've heard a little bit of my story, and the fact that when I was 20 years old, only 20 years old with little building experience, I built a wonderful little 1,400 square foot house for $20,000. It turned out wonderfully. It was amazing. And when I turned around and I sold out, I got an excellent return on it. And today, 30 years later, it's still shining. It's still beautiful. Make that 40 years ago. I'm aging quickly here. 40 years ago, and it's still a wonderful little house. It turned out remarkably well. And then if you fast forward in my life another 10 years, that's when I started my own building company, and I started building houses. And you've seen it in some of my previous episodes. It turned out wonderful. It made the cover of Country Living magazine. It's been featured in a lot of books. And from that period on, my houses continually got better and better. This one just a couple of years after that particular structure. So I got better, and I tell you all that not to impress you, but to impress upon you that I'm coming from experience, and that I can tell you that you too can achieve your dream home, something remarkable, something beautiful, something you'll cherish, something that when the time comes that you sell, you'll be able to make money on it. You'll get your investment back plus more. But the key thing that I want to tell you is that in between this house I built when I was 20 years old and the marvelous success that I had from age 30 on for the next 25 years, there was a 10-year learning period for me. And halfway in between that, between 20 and 30, at the age of 25, I developed an attitude, I guess, and I had a desire to homestead, and I moved to the rural mountains of Tennessee with a goal of building a house for nothing, so that when I got done with it, I had absolutely no mortgage on it, and it was mine to have, and it would be a beautiful, gorgeous thing, and that all I needed to do was just start hammering nails and it would turn out wonderful. And in the end of building that home, again at the age of 25, halfway in between my first success and my successful career, I ended up with a house that, as every day would go by, I took less and less pride in it. And it didn't take long before I realized that it was not an attractive home, and that it was a disappointment to me to live in. When the time came for me to sell the home, I actually didn't get any money at all for the house. I basically sold the land and the house for what I originally paid for the land. And I've never shared a picture online of that particular house. It was a major disappointment for me. And I spent years after that in trying to discover why it was that I was successful with the first home, and why did I fail with this one, and how is it that I can achieve the perfect home? What did I make a mistake on, and how can I leapfrog everyone else and come up with the ultimate home? And so for the next few years, I would study modern construction going on. I would work in the modern construction stick frame building industry, and meanwhile I would explore all of the alternative ones as well, including things as wild as straw bale and tire building and cob and you name it, just every one of them, including some of my favorites that I eventually determined were the focus of my form of handmade houses, which is basically a blend of stick building and log cabin and timber framing and stone, and also there's some modern techniques as well, but we'll get into that in a little bit here. So anyway, over the next few years, I came up with what the hidden secrets behind what it is in order to build a home that when you get done with it, you'll be tickled with it. It'll be perfect, and that you won't have any regrets, and that if the time ever comes for you to sell it, that you will you'll get an excellent return on it. And one thing I can say is that, and I can't guarantee you this, but 5 years after starting my own company, I went on to build my next home, and that it was wonderful. Everyone that came to see it said it was incredible. It wasn't huge, but it was a handmade home, and eventually the family outgrew it, and it was time for me to move on. And when I did move on, I sold that home for 4.5 times what I put into it. So there's an excellent return on this as well. And I know some of you might not think ahead to wanting to do that, but it is important to think ahead in the process of building a home. To that you're, like it or not, you're not going to live in that home forever, and eventually someone else is. Even if you live in it for your entire lifetime, you're going to eventually die, and someone else is going to have the house. So it's important to not only think about your own particular wants and needs, but also the fact that the house is going to go to someone else eventually. So there is that. So anyway, we're here at this cute little log cabin. If you tune in to Handmade House TV, I'll do a couple of videos to tell you more about this. But for right now, maybe I'll move up a little bit closer to you, give you something different to look at, and we'll continue with this. All right, so let's go through these 12 key steps in determining what a handmade house is. And again, I don't think you're going to find anyone else that will reveal these together in a tidy little package. If you go to a log cabin dealer, chances are he will give you a couple of them. If you go to a new builder, he'll give you a couple of them. If you go to someone who builds some form of alternative building, they'll give you a few of them. And none of these are rocket science, but what they are is they're just elements, they're just guidelines for you to keep in mind when you're thinking about your future home, when you're sitting down to do the drawings for your future home, and going along as you build it. If you keep referencing back to it, does this fit within the guidelines of what I established when I started building a home? And if you do, it just keeps you on the path of your true home. The first of these 12 is owner builder. And what I mean by that is that if you want the home of your dreams, you need to be actively involved in it. And that the more you turn over to someone else the power to design and the power to build your home, you're going to get more of a home that they would like you to have rather than a home that you would like to have. And so the further you move along the path in being the owner or builder, the more likely you're going to get the home you want. It sounds like common sense, but a lot of people just don't do that. They think, okay, I want a house. I need somebody else to tell me what I want. So they start going to a log cabin dealer, or they pick up a book at Lowe's, or they'll go to an architect or hire a builder and oh, here's one of them that we do. Well, that's okay, I'll go with that. But if you want the home that you really want, the more effort that you put into it, the more you design, the more you create your own home, the more pleased you're going to be with it in the end, the less money it's going to cost in the end, and just the satisfaction level overall is going to be so much superior if you go with an owner-built home. And that's one of the things that I really try to help with everyone with in the Handmade House Academy package. I'm going to tell you more about it in the end of this after we go through the 12, but I hope you'll consider joining us in the Handmade House Academy. Okay, the second element there, and by the way, when you see me glance down, I'm just looking at the cheat sheet that's available if you want to download it. The second one is the concept of what I refer to as a blended house, where you combine the elements of various forms of construction and you bring them in together to create your own unique home. And a lot of people miss out on this. They focus on wanting a log cabin, and they forget about the idea that maybe a log cabin, or maybe someone's never pointed it out to them, that a log cabin is a wonderful structure. I absolutely love log cabins. Some people refer to me as the log cabin guy. But nonetheless, log cabins are great for some rooms, and they're not great for others. For one thing, they don't make great kitchens. They tend to be low ceilings. When you hang your kitchen cabinets on the walls, they cover up the logs. They tend to be dark. In a kitchen, you want things to be bright. They're difficult to plumb. They're difficult to wire, and they're expensive. Log cabins are not as inexpensive as, say, standard stick-built construction. And if you look at a lot of antique structures, antique log cabins, you'll find out that they have an addition added off to it, and frequently that addition is the kitchen. And also when you go with just stone, if you want just log, maybe your wife or your husband doesn't like log. They might like timber framing. And so if you make part of the house log and part of it timber frame, you can get what your mate wants and what you want as well. So there's a lot of ideas in blended. So what it is that you need to consider all the various forms of construction, which we cover in the Academy, and figure out which ones of them that you would like in your home. Consider the pros and cons of each one of them, and then bring those elements into your future home and create, again, what I refer to as a blended home, which is number 2 of our list. Okay, number 3 is quality over quantity. Every builder out there in the world is going to tell you that their homes are quality. There's a ton of quality builders, and I'm not insulting anyone today or anything else, but the definition of quality is not the highest level of quality in a lousy product. If there are asphalt shingles, which I have never used in my life for roofing a home, if there are generally several grades of asphalt shingles, if your builder is touting that he is giving you the highest quality of asphalt shingles, he might be very well giving you the most expensive variety of asphalt shingles, but he is certainly not giving you the highest quality roof you can have. And that would be standing seam metal, cedar shake, or slate, copper. There's a lot of quality materials, and you can choose from the best of them. But if you want to build a home, you want to go with quality throughout it. You don't want to ever sacrifice from that. And again, this is a great concept, these 12 key elements throughout the entire building, and they keep you in check. If you keep the list handy when you're building and you come to the decision of putting a roof on it, you can refer back to the list and say, yeah, but I really want to stick with quality. That was my goal in the beginning. Those were the principles I started on, and I want to end up with a house I don't regret, or a feature that causes me grief every time I look at it. I want quality. Okay, so number 4 would be locally gathered and salvaged materials. There's a lot of benefits. Local materials are generally better for your home. They will look like they blend in better. You're helping support your local economy when you do it. Frequently, there's savings associated with buying locally. You're supporting local businesses. You're gaining relationships. You're meeting new people. You're acquiring perhaps friends in the process of it. The local people, if you buy, say, your sink made by a local potter, you're gaining new knowledge into a new skill. You're making a new connection, a new network. You might even discover a new career for yourself there. You might just realize, gosh, I want to become a potter. And there's something really special about having a piece of material, a part of your home that has a story behind it. You can say, oh, I bought this from Nancy down the road and everything else. She does a wonderful job. She's a great person. And then the other aspect of that is not only local and the environmental impact that you'll have in not buying a piece of wood that came from Canada. You'll have it something locally produced, and so you won't have to pay for all the transportation expense of it coming across the nation, nor the effect that it might have on the environment of bringing it all the way across the nation. So whenever possible, use local materials, but also use salvage materials. Even if it's just one salvage door, if you go to a salvage yard, the environmental impact of not having to saw, make, manufacture, and create that door, but you're having something that's really unique, that has a story, that has patina, that has age. And I guarantee if you just use one salvage door in your home, that every person who visits you will look at that door, they'll comment on it, and it'll be the highlight of your entire home. So whenever possible, use salvage materials. Highly recommend it. Okay, so we're getting through this list. I'm pleased. I was worried this was going to drag on. Next, number 5, when you build your home, you need to design it to last for centuries. I forecast that most of the homes being built today will last for decades before they're needed to be disposed of. And it's a tremendous curse that we're putting on future generations. The landfills are going to be overflowing with toxic materials as homes are bulldozed. And if we don't have the resources, skill, or ability or desire to build a home that will last today, what makes us think that in the future they will have that? And if we turn to the past, we can see many examples of homes that have endured for centuries. And they are a blessing to the future. When we go to them, they're there. We don't need to consume any more resources to build a home. They're attractive. They have a chance to mature and settle into the landscape, and they are a blessing to future generations rather than being a curse. And also, if you design a home for centuries, that means that you're designing it to be desirable. And that's not a bad thing, that your home might be appreciated and in demand for other people. So please build your home for centuries. And again, I don't want to harp too much on the Handmade House Academy, but we go into details on how to build a house to last for centuries. And one of those elements and everything that I could point out to you is, if you want to build a home that lasts for centuries, look around for homes that have survived for centuries. And what is it about them that has caused them to survive as long, and then seize upon that particular element. The next one is timeless appeal, and that kind of goes back to what I was just saying, and that is that in designing a home that there's no shortage of current fads going on, and this has been something with architecture for probably the last 50 years. There's always been the new greatest home design, and it never fails that in a short period of time that these homes are outdated. And I would encourage you to look for homes that were appealing long ago when they were built and are still appealing to this day. Try to study it, understand what it is about those particular homes, and then copy those in your own home to build and everything else. That if you go to any thriving urban areas, the suburbs that surround it, you'll find one after another homes that were built 30, 40 years ago that are being bulldozed. And it's not because they've worn out in that particular time. Actually, the homes of the 1950s and 60s were fairly well-built homes, but they're out of style, and that people want the latest fad, which is the McMansion, which is the one with a fabricated front of a house to look attractive, and the other three sides, who cares, because I'll never see that, because I pull in my driveway, I go in the house, and I never see the other three sides. So timeless appeal is a key element and desirable feature that you want in your future home. Okay, next up, we got one section at a time. And that is, today it seems like if someone wants a home that they think, gosh, well, I'm going to probably have 3 kids by now, or I'm going to have grandchildren coming in soon, or my sister-in-law has this huge house, and therefore I must have a large house as well. So they start with a large house, which means that they have to have a mortgage. They have a lot of utilities to heat and cool this entire home. They pay a lot in taxes. It means that they can't, there's no way possible for them to financially afford their future home because it's such a huge home. But if you look back in time, and this is a great example of it, is that people would always build a house one section at a time. They would start small. They'd figure out what is the smallest I can build a home, and that it would be of practical size, of useful size, something that I have confidence that with my current abilities and strength and the amount of help that I have, that I can finish it. And I can get onto my land, get into my house, and I can fully enjoy it. And this works well for not only people that are striking out on their own and they want to have their own permanent residence, but also it works well for those that live in the city and want to gradually move to the country. They want to acquire a piece of land. They want to build a little cabin that they want to retreat to on weekends, and then one day when they retire, they want to add to it. And one of the wonderful things about building one section at a time is that by building small, it's easier for you to build, but it's also cost effective. You don't have to take out as much of a huge mortgage on it, that it's a much smaller starting point. Also, by building small and building it one section at a time, that first section, by reducing the size of the home and everything else, that you can get it down to the fact that it's so cost effective that quality is no longer, well, I can't afford quality, that I have to go with a cheaper thing. That by building small, it means that the quality equation rises. It makes quality affordable. And so there's a lot of reasons to start small, and I encourage you, one section at a time. And one final thing I can throw in there is that a house that is built one section at a time, if it's designed properly and thought through properly, that a house connected to a house connected to a house is actually very aesthetically appealing. Rather than one big, huge box to live in, a house that goes one section at a time, maybe one section is log, another is stone, another is timber frame, that it tends to be a strikingly beautiful home. Okay, so the next one, it would be environmentally friendly. And we've already kind of covered that in some of this, and the fact of buying locally salvaged makes it that way. But also there is that the idea of building for centuries and to build it so it has a timeless design. When you build something environmentally friendly, if you put on a copper roof on a house that lasts 150 years or a slate roof that lasts 200 and some years, you're making a tremendously less impact on the environment, and the fact that not every 20 years another roof has to be added onto it. So we want to take care of the planet. We want it to be something enjoyable for future generations, and one way we can do that is to make it environmentally as friendly as possible, to make it as healthy as possible. And by going with natural materials and building a natural home, it's not only better for the planet, but it's better for you. And that is, I'd rather live in a tent or a shack than I would like to live in a toxic home full of toxic materials that will give me cancer in a few years. So by all means, build something healthy. If you build it environmentally friendly for the planet, it'll be environmentally friendly for you, your children, your family, and all those who reside in the house over the years. So the next key feature in the handmade house is minimal mortgage, and that's a tough one for all of us, and with the goal being zero mortgage. And perhaps you're aware that the root word of mortgage is a death pledge. And that it really works out that well that when you sign your life into the system of making mortgage payments, that it's very likely that you'll end up paying a mortgage for the rest of your life. That those days of working away at a mortgage for 10, 15 years seem to be gone, and that people end up signing 30-year mortgages, and then they move 7 years later and take out another mortgage starting from scratch. So basically a lot of people spend their entire lives paying a mortgage, and if you're not familiar with it, by the time you pay off a mortgage, you've paid the bank more than the cost, more in interest, more than the cost of the home was originally. So we'd like to reduce that mortgage. We'd like to get it out of our lives. We'd like the freedom, the lifestyle that comes from owning a handmade house. And that's by keeping that mortgage to a minimal or to reducing it altogether, eliminating it altogether. And first of all, I'd like to separate land from a mortgage. And that is that seems to be a stumbling block for a lot of individuals, is the purchase of land. Land is a different thing than a mortgage. When you take out a loan on a land, it's not really a mortgage. It's called a land loan. By the way, Farmers Credit is a great source if you need to take that, but the best is owner financing if you want to acquire a piece of land. But a house, no matter how well you build it, even the pyramids in Egypt will eventually go their way. But land is a permanent thing. It lasts forever. Some people will fuss about how expensive land is, but there's nothing more valuable that can be purchased in this life than land. It provides so much for us in the way of water, a place to put our stuff, a place to grow our own food, a place to live, a place to dispose of our refuse, and it has a source of trees to keep us warm. It's just land is a blessing that will last you and every generation that's alive on this planet. So if you're taking out a 10, 15-year loan on a piece of land, that's a whole different thing than taking out a 30-year loan on a house. So if you're just starting out, I would encourage you to look for land and don't fret about going into debt with it. But where you want to focus on keeping everything to a minimum is on the house itself, on keeping the expense of that house down to a minimum, without sacrificing any of the 12 key elements here in this series that we're talking about. So keep that mortgage to a minimum. See if you can make a goal of getting rid of that thing in 5 or 10 years' time, and living a life debt-free without financing those on Wall Street. Next on our list, we have outdoor living. Our homes that are built today are focused more and more on interior living. they're designed to look attractive when you pull in your driveway and to get you in the front door of the house, and that you'll never see the outside again. And the lures that are inside, the comfort, the heating and air conditioning, that was enough in the past to keep us inside a lot. But nowadays, with all of the electronic devices, it's so alluring and comfortable to be inside that we never come outside anymore. And there's so much to be benefited from being outside. And as a result of it, a lot of new homes, the porches have gotten smaller and smaller and nearly vanished. Windows are becoming less and less. So when you build a house, do your best to think about the outside, to make it as alluring as possible. That when you're outside, that you want to be drawn out. That there's a lot of reasons that pull you to come outside and experience the outside world. The easiest of those is a wonderful porch on your home. That alone will tend to pull you out onto it. To put plenty of windows that view on something that is appealing, that draws you outside. If you're going to create a garden or a fountain or a gazebo, a retaining wall, you name it, everything else, make sure and put windows inside that pull you outside. There are other elements of it, but we don't want to get too much into that right now. But nonetheless, when designing a home, think about the outside. One of the great ways that, if you filter back through all the keys that we've gone through, is that by building a house small, one section at a time, something that you can afford, there's not as much rambling room there, and you want to get outside there. When you owned a cabin, a home the size of this, back then, I've heard a lot of stories that there was 12 children. And that there was a fire roaring in the fireplace in August in order to can vegetables. So the inside of the house was well over 110, 120 degrees, and there's 12 children. There's no video games to play inside. There's no computer to cruise the internet. So you're outside, and there was plenty of chores to do outside today as well. So you've got to experience the great outdoors. Okay, enough of that. Sorry about that, but I'm big on the outdoor living, obviously. And another thing I'd like to point out to you, and I'm standing right next to it, and you've been seeing it for a while here. I apologize about not moving the camera for you, but it is this chimney, and it is number 11 would be a masonry chimney. It startles me, it baffles me, and I think that if you were to go back in time 30 or 40 years ago and say, hey, in the future, they're not even going to put chimneys on houses anymore, I think people would be startled, because throughout the entire history of mankind, for thousands of years going back, the whole point of a home was basically a place to gather around a fire. Then it was to get the smoke out of that area, and then it was to create enough shelter around that particular fire that human beings could fit in next to it, which is what a definition of a little log cabin is. It's a structure big enough to fit everybody in there around the fire, and fires add so much to our life. They will bless you. They will stir your soul. They will invigorate your life. If hard times were to hit for a week or two, they're the difference between life and death. It's the most valuable element one can have on a home is a masonry chimney. I prefer stone, but I've done my share of brick as well. We'll get into the design aesthetics of chimneys and over on the Handmade House TV series. By the way, I hope you're watching over there. But make sure that you got a masonry chimney on it. Okay, and last on the list is artistic expression. Your home is your home, and we're all, like it or not, artists. Whether or not we make a fine pie, or we make quilts, or we do handcrafts or woodworking projects, or we've got the best looking car in the neighborhood. We are all artists, and I believe that a home should be an expression of your artistic ability, and what better form to put your expression to make sure that when people see that house, that they recognize it and associate with it. Clearly that's your house. So artistic house is the way to go. So I'm getting a few drops of rain falling on top of my head, so I'm probably going to slide up on this porch to finish this up. But that concludes the 12. But I really want to tell you about something else. Well, all right, that rain gave me an opportunity to come up on this porch and enjoy this rocking chair and get a little closer to the cabin. I really thank everybody for joining in today with these 12 secrets of what compose a handmade house that will guide you along the path. I hope that you print them out or that you've taken some good notes, because they are life-changing. You will end up with a house far superior than what you ever thought you could achieve if you just stick to these 12 things. And if you've enjoyed this, I hope that you'll also visit the website, Handmade Houses, where I have over 1,000 photographs of unique structures, that half of them that I've built, along with construction photos and details as I built them, and the other half are images of houses that I really I enjoy seeing, that serve as an inspiration for my work, and I believe will serve as inspiration for your upcoming house as well. In addition, please consider joining me on my Facebook group, which is Noah's Handmade Houses. We have well over 100,000, heading toward 200,000 people now, and I appreciate every one of you that follow along. It's a blessing to me, and I enjoy your comments. So again, I thank you for attending today's series here, today's video, and I really hope you enjoy it, and I hope you get a lot of it, and I hope I see you somewhere else, and thanks for coming along.